Oh, do I need to?
Yeah. It says we're live. I don't bite.
But I do.
And we're off to a rampant running start. Due to scheduling, Ian is not with us today, so Rita has been good enough to stand in, and we do appreciate that. Before we get to Rita and her
Issues?
no, I want you to talk about your book today.
Oh, okay. I can do that.
But first, I have a rant. George Gaston out in L.A., he will now be on the ballot again in November for recall. Well, what is even worse is that son of a bitch has, in the last year, prohibited the prosecutors from going to the parole hearings and has now announced that he's not going to allow, he's going to do away with the victim crime unit, which notifies the victims of when the parole hearings are.
Is he the district attorney?
Yes.
Oh.
He is a hard left Soros DA who loves the criminals. Yeah, we were in the swear words a while ago.
How did he ever let Kamala Harris leave then?
No, that's San Francisco.
Oh.
Yeah, different. Well, she was the AG before. She was San Francisco, thanks to Willie, and then AG.
Really?
Yeah.
How appropriate considering.
But tell me this. What is
They should sell meat pads. So
what to what purpose would they be friendly to known violent or otherwise offenders?
Well,
Soros
it's
wants to destabilize the U.S. and by stepping up the crime through DAs and manipulating them.
Yeah.
He does more and more of that. Man is pure evil, and how he's still alive is just boggling.
Yeah.
Oh, and Frank, I'm not going to go assassinate him because I don't have the money. So stop drinking.
Now he'll switch to something else.
Yeah, he'll pick some other thing to start manipulating.
Yeah. But the problem is, by doing away with the victims unit, now the victims will not know when the parole hearing is, nor will they have any assistance, which they were getting from the prosecutors. So the earliest he'll be recalled is November. But the question is, how much more damage is he going to do between now and then? Villanueva, who is the sheriff of LA County, is purposely taking people to other counties to get them arraigned. So that they actually get arraigned.
Mm.
Yeah, and other than that, hello all. I will shut up now. We'll go something much nicer, which is Rita talking about her book, or where she is in her book.
Okay.
Well,
We can do that. I do have a question though about the situation in LA. Is could somebody set up a some sort of database where people could find out when the hearings are, so that victims or families of victims could go and be at the hearings?
They would have to have access to the DA's logs and records, which they don't normally get.
Why is that not public record?
It should be. It is in most places.
Well, maybe they need to protest this with their,
You would think.
yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
over to you.
well, my thesis for my master's degree was a book called Overly Familiar. Also, I must state here, we have a friend, Alma Boykin, who's a really fantastic writer, who has a book also called Overly Familiar. She has an entire series of familiar oriented stories. So she's an excellent writer. I started writing mine with the title and everything in 2014. And it was just, I initially started as a short story. I know that never happens, right? A short story that's too much to cram into one. You know, it's like 100 pounds of sugar in a 4-pound bag. That's how I write. And so, anyway, I had to figure out a way to cram it all in there. And I started out writing for the Bain short sci-fi fantasy competition in March of 2014. I started writing it on Saturday morning. I found out about the competition on Friday night or Saturday morning. I started writing it then. It was due Sunday night at midnight. And of course, I was writing furiously for a day and a half. And then I realized that I got to the end of it. I had about 30 minutes before the deadline, the cutoff for sending it in electronically, and I realized I don't have enough time to reread this, let alone edit it and make it what I want it to be. So I decided not to submit it for their story competition, and I kind of let it marinate for a while. And then later on, I was planning on what I would write for my my thesis, and I did creative thesis. So I decided I would revisit that, and I took it and I really expanded it. And for my thesis, it was required to be novella length, so 90 to 100 pages, and that's what I did. And now I'm in the process of converting it back to a novel length. Fortunately, a lot of that 100 pounds of sugar I put in the first 10 pages I crammed in there. Now I'm able to really expand on that and put all of those elements back in the story and everything. So I'm just in the process of doing that. I'm hoping to launch the book at our party at FenCon in Dallas in September.
Well, you also had some issues with your professor on your.
Well, when I took it in, I graduated in May, but I had to get the draft to him by February 1st. And so when we started, when the semester began, I was kind of cranking it along and trying to get it under control. And I turned it into my advisor, the person really overseeing my writing and everything. And he was like, I just don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to be workable. And it's certainly not in shape now to present to the graduate committee. And he said, have you thought about your backup? What are you going to do if this, if you're not ready to submit it this semester? And at that point, I was frantic, and I dropped everything and I just worked. He gave me a list of things to do to fix what was problematic with it at that time. And even then, at around, I think the first draft that I submitted was around 75 pages. And I knew that, and I didn't have the conclusion in that one. And so he started having me lop out this and that, extra characters who didn't have to be there, because he wanted me to boil it down to the more essential characters and everything.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a fright, and I was sweating it, because I was thinking, it wouldn't have killed me to graduate in December, but at that point, I think I decided that I've been in school a long time, and it was just time to move on. And in fairness, I had like a perfect storm of epic crap that happened in March of 2000. Well, in December of 2018, I had emergency gallbladder magic happen in my life, and I had to have the surgery for that. And then my dad died a handful of months later, and then a year later I got COVID, and then a year after that I got COVID. So it's just been like, it's been all this stuff. And I sort of started taking this philosophical approach that, and actually it happened after the gallbladder thing, and then after Dad died, I was just like, this takes as long as it takes. And so I decided not to be in a rush about it, and I thought I'll get there when I get there, and hopefully while my degree plan is still valid, which it was going to expire in December this year, so I really had to get it done. But at that point, I was starting last fall, I was realizing I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to go out in the real world and decide what to do when I grow up. But anyway.
And all of us were ready for you to be done too.
Why are you all ready? It was mostly.
You were a tad grumpy.
Oh, was
and
I?
then I showed up.
Yeah, but my fairy godjana appeared and fixed everything.
I fixed everything. I brought Courtney with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did have help, but they're wonderful, wonderful ladies, and have been just like Mary Poppins for me. I love
Mary
them.
Poppins. We're more like get it done, or we stand over you with a whip, going get your work done.
Medusa Poppins.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, the story is
The tapping you hear is Rita tapping the table.
Sorry.
Jewelry.
I'm fiddly.
And
You
she
know
has
that.
fabulous jewelry always.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, the story takes place in East Texas in 1951. It's set there that the character is a little East Texas witch. She's kind of a little potato of a lady, and she's older, and she's really a healer midwife type of person. She's not like black arts or anything like that, but she's a problem that she's in the world, in my world, in my 1951, there's a shortage of familiars, and she's had a problem keeping one. She's had a bad one after another, and she ends up um, sending off the Familiars Guild in London has one familiar available, and they send him. He's a raven. And his person died in World War II, and he's been off kind of licking his wounds on a lonely tower in Kent in England. Anyway, he's his name is Hugh, and he's a raven. Did I say that already?
No.
And Hugh makes his way. He takes the assignment, and he was a 70-year familiar to a dandy, like an Oscar Wilde type in London, who's kind of a fancy, snooty, rubbing elbows with famous folk kind of person. Anyway, so it's a culture clash. So Hugh arrives in 1950s East Texas with all of our sweet iced tea and everything. So they bond over different ideas about tea. But anyway, there's kind of a culture clash, but they end up having a meeting of minds, and it's, I think, kind of a charming relationship, and you always have the conflict related to tea. But
it's an excellent book, and it will be even better once she gets it back to where she wants it to be.
Yeah. Well,
It's not out yet, Brian.
I have to say, yeah, and I hope that I have it out before FenCon.
You will.
I will have it out before FenCon because Medusa Poppins said I would.
Shauna has spoken.
That's
no,
right.
Both Courtney and I have spoken because she's got a couple of short stories up that are fabulous.
Yes.
On Amazon, but it's a fabulous book. We both read parts of it. It's like, please,
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about it. One thing, and I just remember what you were asking me about the conflict with my professor. The professor had some different ideas about how things should be done, and I'm sorry, I'm having like a runny nose. Sorry. Woohoo.
No
Anyway,
problem.
he had some different ideas about some elements of it that and one of my problems with that is that I don't want to put, although I know it is unavoidable that we put our sensibilities and our mores of our time into even writing about another period and everything, but I felt like I am not turning in 1951 East Texas, screen door, dust everywhere, tobacco spittle running down the corners of everyone's mouth, even the men.
Yeah.
I'm not going to turn that world into a social justice world. It's just not happening. Not in my book. Not on my watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot. There's a lot in the story that is more contemporary because some characters are a little more receptive and accepting of like a same-sex relationship that's in the book, but it's not. That's a very minor part. There's just a couple of characters who are kind of an aside in a way, but because I know that gay people have always been here.
Yeah.
So, and
well, and that was like I told you when I read it. I said, "Well, that's the sop to the professor to get him off your ass."
Well, you know what? I guess it may have had that effect.
Yeah.
But there were some things that that bothered me. Like one of the things was one of the characters. There's a bad family who
Mm-hmm.
has petroleum. Oil's been found on their property, and they're apocalyptic white trash. They're horrible people. They're mostly horrible, and some of them are evil con carne. And so he wanted me to conflate the evilness with the fact that their family's land was now going to be used for the evil petroleum industry. And I must say, I want to qualify that professor drove a gas guzzling sports car, drives. He's a lovely, lovely person and everything. But the fact is that for people who want to paint all of the petroleum industry with a broad brush It's not that simple. And the fact is that there are so many products in our lives that are part of everyday, part of what we wear, all of the products we use, things in our kitchen and what have you, that are petroleum, or at least peripherally petroleum oriented. And I'm not just talking about nacho cheese,
I
but
was gonna say that's the glue in your shoes.
yeah, yeah, really.
Say,
But to me, to do this like ridiculous crusade on an entire industry because things aren't as ideally non-polluting as we would like, is I'm just not joining that religion. I have my own faith and beliefs. I don't need to adopt someone else's, and I'm not going to make my story about that.
Well, and what you did in there is very realistic,
Mhm.
because my family was in the oil business. My dad was in the oil business from 1920 till he died in 1959. And I had friends, his friends that I stayed in touch with,
Mhm.
including a wildcatter, who point blank said there are pure assholes out there who, if it wasn't for oil, would be scratching in the dirt trying to put two pennies together.
Mhm.
And that power that oil patch gave them was absolutely amazing.
Mhm.
And it went to their heads.
Mhm.
So that actually is very, very good characterization of the reality of the
Mhm.
1950s.
Yeah. Well, it's this, unearned status and esteem.
Yeah.
And that is, but and that's human nature though. And that's not new. That's not new. That's that will go on long after we're all gone.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it will be something else.
and probably because he watched Dallas at one point.
Oh,
J.R. Ewing.
yeah.
Hello?
Come on
JR,
over and jump in.
JR was a rascal though.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Ian wasn't here.
oh, he's working.
Ah,
So you can be the stand-in Ian.
He's the other Ian.
He'll be the prosthetic Ian.
Yeah, the prosthetic
don't
Ian.
want to take Rita's spot if she's enjoying it.
No, she's going to be on here. You get to sit at the end of the table.
Okay.
Shut up, sit down.
Yes, sir.
You're the conversational prop. You're the
Uh,
fluffer.
and away we go.
That's a myth, actually. But I'm not going to get into it.
What's a
No,
myth?
it's
It's a
not.
myth that you're fluffing anyone?
No, that there are fluffers.
And you'd be wrong.
No.
Well, okay.
We
at
are
least one is
not going
better.
down that friggin' rat hole. Period. Stop it, both of you.
See how nasty he is?
Jesus.
Okay,
I never
so
claimed
this
to be
seems
good.
Like the appropriate moment to show this new thing that will be appearing on one of our sites. We now have stickers.
Hey, yeah.
Y'all ain't right.
Let me hold it up. Can you see it? Y'all ain't right. Focus, focus.
It'll focus. That's
Okay.
as close as you're going to get.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, we ain't right.
Can I throw you?
Yeah, just leave it there.
Yeah, Steph, it definitely took a hard left turn there. If J.R. Ewing had a fluffer.
It wasn't that kind of soap.
No.
Aaron Spelling was his fluffer.
Sideways around the bed.
Aaron Spelling was from Dallas. Did you know that?
Yeah.
He was born on a little bitty street over. It's down over in the south area of Dallas called the Cedars, and that area was an affluent Jewish community. Shocking, right? But they were south of downtown, and I used to live in some lofts over there. But he was born on this one little basically in a shack.
Yeah.
It is long gone, and in the this is a rabbit chase. You're gonna love it. This is how I have a conversation. Sorry, you're in for it. And when I take somebody to Dallas for the first time, I do the $2, what I call my $2 Dallas tour. I show them all the places like
It's really
Where-
fun.
where Jack Ruby bought the telegram or where he wired money to Candy Delight in Oklahoma City before he went over and shot what's his name?
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That
yeah, that's part of the $2 tour. But I always take people by where Aaron Spelling was born and spent his childhood. Desperately poor, which I think probably tells a lot about how ambitious he was and why Dallas had to be in a TV show and why he wanted Dallas to look bad. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know, but or maybe he wanted Dallas to look like itself.
Yeah,
But-
well, I would say that.
But the funny thing was that I knew a realtor when I was working in real estate. I knew a realtor in Dallas who was, when he was a child, that the area where it's still there, the place where the block where his house was, where he was born, is now like one of those little by the hour motel things where hookers
Yeah.
stay. Like working people,
Terribly appropriate.
working persons, right? Anyway, but anyway, he was telling me that when he was a child, his father had died when he was a small boy, and his mother wanted him to be involved with grown men from church. So on Sundays, he would go out and send out the church bulletin with one of the elders from their church. I won't say the denomination, except I will say it wasn't Southern Baptist. It was one of them churches that drink
Yeah.
publicly. But anyway, what would happen is that little hotel thing, or the motel, the motor court, whatever it was. He said that one day in November 1963, it was a Friday. It must have been a Friday, wasn't it? Was it whatever day it was? It was the day the church bulletins went out, and he went over there with this man when they were sending out the church bulletins. He would take this little boy over when he went over to visit the ladies at the motor court and say hello. So they were there when they were like, he said they were sitting on the bed when the announcement came on that the president had just been shot in Dallas, and here it was,
Yeah.
like a mile and a half away, and anyway, and all the hullabaloo, and they're just sitting there. How would he explain to his mom that he'd been watching in a hooker's room?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a really, really fascinating story, which made me excited. It's also, incidentally, it's 1 block away from Seagar Street, which Seagar is the street. Dr. Seagar was a dentist in Dallas, and Doc
Mhm.
Holliday, whose family had a dental academy, was it Baltimore, Boston, something. He had obviously a lung problem, a breathing problem, so he needed to live someplace warmer. So he came and took a job as a dentist in Dallas, working for Dr. Seagar, who fired him when he kept coughing on the patients. Anyway, Dr. Seagar is like his street's a block from Aaron Spelling's thing. Isn't it neat? Isn't it beautiful how they're all interconnected?
Yeah, but
Don't you-
Spelling did Dynasty, not Dallas.
He did Dallas too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he did.
Well, it wasn't Glenn A. Larson, but I don't remember. Spelling did 90210. He did Dynasty.
Why don't you Google it? If only somebody would Google that.
Who did
Jeez.
Falcon Crest?
Katzman. Yeah, let's see.
Let's just look up Spelling.
All I know is his daughter had a really bad boob job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she needed a lot of facial work too.
I used to work for Neiman Marcus.
Created by David Jacobs.
Well, I thought it was Aaron Spelling. That just ruins my whole story. Thank you for
Sorry.
that. Well,
no,
you know
he
what?
switched over to Dynasty.
Okay.
Yeah, Dynasty was originally going to be called Oil.
Yeah.
So
It's so disappointing, though. It fits so nicely. Now you see my dreams come crashing down.
Sorry.
All of that. Now I'm gonna have to
Well, you can blame it on mansplaining. Now we get blamed for everything else around here.
right. Were you man explaining me?
That's a different show. That's manic.
Yeah.
So,
Oh well.
I was not assuming anything.
always safe.
Well, you know what? Accurate is better.
Yeah.
Speaking of accuracy, this is not the first time I've embarrassed myself before this audience. I completely mispronounced something in my Italian story that I read.
Oh.
It's conchiglie. I forgot. It's stupid because I've studied Italian and taken Italian diction, so I shouldn't have made that mistake. But
It happens.
it's one of those things.
that
I forgive myself, obviously.
that is what always amazed me. Talk about a segue, but that brings up an interesting one.
And we're off.
What?
And we're off.
Westpac, the bands. Perfect mimicry of groups. Zeppelin, the Beatles,
Oh yeah.
etc. Couldn't speak a damn word of English.
Hmm.
But they could mimic the sounds perfectly. But when you try to talk to them, you got Spanglish or
I feel that way about most musicians. But
Yeah. Tagalog or something.
Hi, Holly.
There was an Italian comedian, can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he had a song that was a big hit in the early 70s that was basically a mockery of every English song at the time. They don't speak any English. It's just what English sounded like to his Italian ear.
Yeah.
Pleasing colon and chuzo or something like that.
Hi, Holly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was it? Somebody said, he said the band was called Westpac, or you were just saying people in the West Pacific?
In the West Pacific.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember what the band was. Hell, that was, you gods, 50 years ago.
And what Rick said, yeah, you've read the word before you've heard it spoken. But again, I've had Italian diction, so I should know. I should have thought that through, but I didn't.
Well, and in opera, you learn how to sing in Italian,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't necessarily speak it.
You don't, but you're a terrible singer if you don't transpose every single word and know what the words are that when you're singing them. But knowing what you're singing and all of that is very different from being conversational.
Yeah. Creco Kid was a fiend of mine. Yeah. Yeah. And L's.
That's funny.
Everything got an L stuck in it. Flinch flies.
Yeah.
And they spelled it that way too. You walk up in Cuba, you walk up to the little shack,
Mm-hmm.
FLENCH, FLIES.
One of the best videos you can find on YouTube, I've seen it like a million times, is the guy I think he's in PI, I'm not sure, but he's singing Touch My Body by Mariah Carey. You got to see it because I think it's called Touch My Body. And it's sung like that. It's magnificent. And somebody did little animations of what he's actually saying.
Yeah.
And it's magnificent.
Your YouTube history is just fascinating.
My YouTube history, well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different list.
My YouTube history is a troubling thing. Well, speaking of, and the funny thing is, talking about all the, not that I'm like focused on negative things or not like, I'm not fatalistic really, mostly, but
Ian's job.
Who besides me has been watching disaster porn for a couple of years and a half, maybe. I don't know. I swear.
Lived for enough of it.
I believe I've seen every single minute of content on YouTube of the Japanese tsunami. Some of it twice or thrice, but that avalanches, dam failures. I don't know why. I don't know. I find it soothing. But anyway.
Oh, now we're putting babies to sleep. Good. Well, we're good for something.
Who's putting babies to sleep?
We are, apparently. Differ says, baby fell asleep in high chair. I ain't moving him.
Oh, maybe he loves hearing about disaster porn too.
Yeah, peelings instead of feelings. Yes.
Yeah.
It was definitely a thing when I was in China, which was much more recently than you were in the Pacific. About 15 years ago. Doesn't matter what bar I went into. If they had a live band and they were doing English songs at all, I would hear twice that night.
Oh yeah,
they did it pretty well.
Yeah,
but everybody loved that song, and it's like it's the Eagles.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Well, you would get the Eagles. I mean, there were country western Westpac bands.
Okay.
There were current rock Westpac bands.
Mm-hmm.
And they would bounce country to country to country, depending on how well they were or how bad.
Right.
And then when you got over to Singapore and Hong Kong, there would be a different set. And the lead singer was often a Benny boy. So dressed, acted, whole 9 yards like a female, but a guy. But the high-pitched voices, and I couldn't hear high-pitched voices back then, and it has not gotten any better. So you'd see them up there, and they're just mouths just going, and you have no idea what the hell they're singing.
Rogue Usagi has seen Tatsumai. Also, Raptor says, if by disaster porn you mean the news, yeah, I've seen too much. I mean, we've all seen enough of that. That's a nightmare. At least the other stuff you can turn off. Let's see. Somebody said I have a bad habit of watching aircraft disasters before, like videos before I fly. There's a really good one I found last week of the flight tower air traffic control audio is always rich food for mining there. There's the Aeroflot plane crash where the assistant pilot was hired just for that. The relief pilot was there who led his 2 teenagers into the cockpit and they crashed the plane.
Yeah.
That was a bad idea. Never fly Aeroflot. Just
I mean,
well,
The
Aeroflot.
well, those Tupolevs though, they're so big that a lot of people lived through them, didn't they?
well, they tend to live through them if they survive the angle of impact.
Yeah.
But it's the old thing about, well, if you sit here, you'll survive. If you sit here, you'll die.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Just sit where the black box is.
Yeah. That's guaranteed you won't survive. There is one video, almost disaster video, that I saw personally out in, the crash, the fire, the Russian rescuers, and Russian medical assistance.
Mm.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah. If you survive all of those, you're probably okay.
Mm.
But the IL-76 taking off out of Perth and blowing dirt at the far end of the runway.
Hmm.
We were actually standing on the ramp watching that day. And they had to have picked it up at least 8 feet by the 2,000-foot overrun because there was a fence there. Oh, well, yeah, John, you are in one disaster porn video, sadly.
Which one are you in?
The Reno Air Races, the crash up there.
Oh, wow.
John was less than 50 feet from him.
Oh, damn.
Thankfully, it hit going away from him, not toward him, or he wouldn't be here. Yeah, the must go faster. Oh, shit, we're out of runway and lift.
Yeah. Why is the nose pointing at the ground? Is
Yeah,
this
there's some
bad?
airports that I will never fly into.
Yeah.
Watching planes try to land on them, I'm like, yeah, no.
Landing on a carrier is fun.
Yeah, no.
It's a whole different perspective.
Include me out.
Let's land on a postage stamp in the middle of water. So,
Well, it just looks like a postage stamp from 15,000 feet.
right?
It's called a controlled crash for a reason.
I still think it'd be all kinds of fun because I love roller coasters. But yeah.
Well, you're actually aiming at the island, not the landing strip,
Yeah.
because the boat is actually going this way and you're landing this way.
Yeah.
So you're aimed at the island when you're flying the ball and you've got the ball centered. And basically you cross the path.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? One of the coolest pilot stories I've ever heard, and I think you know the guy, the Air America guy.
Yeah, Neil Hansen.
He was, I'm sure it was on Terry Gross on Fresh Air or something, and it was about, it would have been over 20 years ago, probably late 90s or so. And he was on there, and she was asking him about interesting stories, and he told the story that he was, I'm the guy. What an adrenaline junkie freak! I'm sure he's a wonderful human being.
He is.
Whatever, but he told this story that just mesmerized me because he was hired to fly a plane, obviously because he's some kind of freak. That this plane in Russia that was a plane full of cattle, and because it wasn't like it was just a cargo plane, it had kind of a pony wall between where the cargo was and all these nervous cows. So he's like on a plane, he gets up off the ground, and the cows are restive, and they're mooing and sweating and all of this stuff. And he said that what happened was as they gained altitude, that all of their breath and everything condensed. There was condensate on the inside of the fuselage that ended up freezing, and they're flying along, and they get to their destination, they start going down, and it starts thawing, and it's running down, and all of this water is just pouring onto the instruments. And he thought, oh, we're going to crash. This is, there's nothing, this is going to fry everything because there's like sparks and shit. And he obviously survived it and everything, but that was one of the best stories. He said it smelled horrendous.
Yeah.
You've got like reconstituted cow moisture
Uh-huh.
and it's running on your instruments. I'm sure that smelled wonderful when it was cooking
Yeah.
and all of that, because cows, I mean, God bless them, but it's
Yeah,
not
Rick.
so
Well, the other good story that Neil tells is getting a DC-7 out of Laos at the end of the war. And he was flying out of Vientiane, and Vientiane required a co-pilot, except he didn't have one. So he went and got a dead Chinaman's body out of the back of the airplane,
Oh my God.
put it in the co-pilot seat, put a hat on it, and said he took off with both windows of the cockpit open for a reason.
Well, they didn't say it had to be a live co-pilot. They just said a co-pilot.
Yeah.
Right?
And flew the airplane out of Vientiane that way.
Wow, Differ Smith says the Russian air crash that killed a plane full of kids, then father of some of the kids went and murdered the air traffic controller. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, they tend to take it rather personal over there.
Russian flying stories are always amazing.
Yes.
Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space.
Yes.
I don't remember the details of this, but essentially there was an airframe that test pilots were flying and they knew it was dangerous, but the political appointee who was in charge of it ordered someone to fly, and Gagarin said, I'll do it. Basically because he was such a hero that there could be no cover-up when he died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he saved someone's life by going up and crashing to take out a political appointee.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass.
Wow.
Yeah, Rick, that's very true. Rick says the difference between Air Force greases it in and the pilots plant the plane just past the threshold, because that's what you're taught to do. Because what it does is it kills the lift off the wings. Whereas if you grease it in, the airplane's still trying to fly going down the runway, which is not good, especially in a crosswind. So, you know, planting, I'm always in favor of planting the airplane. Yeah, 2 more flights. Yeah, Bob the Not Russian, 2 more flights, Nika the soloed. Yeah, the chimp. That's a good story too.
Sorry, Differ Smith. It sucked to watch that video. Which video are you talking about?
The one where the kids were killed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, you can see things out there you don't want to see, trust me. One of the sadder notes I posted on my blog today is the anti-submarine warfare variant of the P-3 is officially gone from the U.S. Navy. The last active duty squadron turned them over in 2020, and VP-62 flew the last bird out June 10th last month, 586, took off out of NAS Jacksonville and went to the boneyard. So now we have the special squadrons flying them, and NOAA flies 2 P-3s into hurricanes because the airplane's that rugged. But you get the hell beat out of you doing that. Yeah, Raptor, you don't want landing lights at night on the carrier because that blinds everybody. And for those of you that, if you ever get to an air show and see a Navy airplane, on the front, there's this bar that's about that high and about that wide on the landing gear. And it has 3 lights on it. It has 2 orange lights and a green light in the middle. That's what the LSO is looking at to tell whether you're high, low, on speed or not. And that's where you always see in the movies where they're going, power, power, power. It's because those lights don't look right to the LSO. And the ball, or what's called a ball, is actually a Fresnel lens that is gimbaled and sits on the left side of the runway, actually over the side of the ship. Big green ball in the middle, and a set of datum, what's called datum lights that split it, and they're yellow across the middle. As you go high, the datum lights rise. As you go low, they will actually, depending on how low you go, they will turn the center ball red. And that's when you get the power, 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 bolter, 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 take it around call. Because the reason for that is The round down on the back of the boat is steel. It doesn't give.
Yeah, no.
And when you hit that, you're going to shed parts, blow the airplane up, whatever. But interestingly enough, on the carrier, when they are landing, you are not allowed aft of the basically back on the fantail in case somebody hits the round down.
Makes sense.
No, you would be surprised where people will sneak off to.
Didn't an airplane flop off a carrier a few days ago?
Yeah, they lost one off the Truman over in the Med.
What?
They
Yep.
didn't have a
Just
leash
like-
on it.
Oh, I missed that.
They don't like tie them down or anything.
Well, there's a they are supposed to be tied down, and the normal tie down on rough weather is 12 to 17 chains. Normally it's 12 chains. So you've got 6 off each side and 6 front and back. But Truman's been on deployment for 6 months now. So most of the non-skids worn off the steel deck.
Oh, that's a problem.
And it has jet fuel, oil, and hydraulic fluid spilled on the deck.
Oh boy.
So it am a skating rink out
To
there.
the slippy side.
Yeah. And airplanes will start, when you get 70 to 100 knots of wind, an airplane will start trying to fly even on the ground.
Mhm.
And when they start bouncing, they start flexing those chains. And a chain pops, the next one pops, the next one pops, and
Oh boy.
The way it goes.
I want to say it was the forest fire, Forestall, back 20 years ago, lost an F-14 off the hangar
Oops.
elevator because of a roll and a rogue wave. It broke the tow bar. The pilot actually jumped out and landed on the elevator, but the airplane went over the side. It was one of those, oops.
You just made me think. I love the videos of the cruise ships like smacking into a bunch of small boats, or I mean, I know it's terrible, or like
As
going,
long as you don't own one of those
like,
small boats.
yeah, or they're like there's like a jet like hitting jetties and stuff like.
Kitchen and storms, and the furniture is going back and forth across the deck.
Oh, yeah, those freighters from the cockpit of the freighters, and there's
Yeah.
always like a crazy Scotsman laughing like a maniac and cursing his balls off. That's fun.
Crazy Scotsman is a redundancy.
Yes.
Ah.
Rick,
What did he say?
it may have been a pad eye bust, but that would be awfully surprising because they're in there pretty good. But yeah, nobody's going to be out on the deck in that situation checking the tie downs.
Oh, because of the slick
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to be there when a chain breaks loose off of one of those?
Yeah. Yeah,
Way to get
visiting VIP vomit. Yeah, yeah, people tend to puke.
My brain.
Probably one of the better ones is the Kitty Hawk, better known as the Shitty Kitty.
Oh, she just went to scrap.
Yep, she went to scrap for 1 cent.
That's so sad.
She's
What?
actually still government property,
Yeah,
but she actually took blue water over the bow
yeah.
out in Westpac a few years ago.
Okay.
Now the flight deck's 95 feet from the water.
Uh-huh.
She took blue water over the flight deck,
Mhm.
and there was a SH-60 from HSL 51 sitting on the flight deck because it was an emergency flight. They landed on the boat. They changed it where it was because they knew they were going into bad weather. That airplane became a strike because of all the water that hit it. They literally craned the thing off and said,
I know this will shock you, but pretend somebody in the audience doesn't know what blue water, the significance of blue water over a flight deck.
blue water is when basically the flight deck goes underwater.
Yeah.
Because the wave is so high.
So
The
not
flight-
just a little foam, not
No.
everything, just actual
Water.
in the drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Destroyer sailors jokingly say they're half submarine
That's true.
because destroyers also tend to penetrate the waves.
Mhm.
And you get blue water, green water, whatever you want to call it.
But that's expected.
So I was
Oh.
watching a tanker ship, a big tanker ship out in the North Sea that actually the waves were so big that it cracked the ship in half.
Yeah, broke it in half. Yeah.
Broke it in half because the swells, it was like 60-foot waves and they were up and down. It was like, damn, it's not where I'd want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean, you're exactly right. Remediation cost is usually so high that scrap value is a negative number. Yeah. Yeah, Tom, I know you've said that before.
What did he say?
Never had my track go errantly airborne or underwater. Tom is Army. Tom likes to walk to work. I don't. Yeah, Rick. I've said that prayer before. Oh Lord, your sea is so large and my ship is so small. You know, if you really want humility, get out in the big water on the back of a boat at night, and you're the only one out there, and you look up the stars, and you realize just how truly insignificant we as human beings are.
Oh, the new telescope. Oh my God.
Well, the sky is just amazing.
Yep.
You know, the amount of stars that you can see. Yeah, Richard, that was Halsey and his screw up. Taffy 3. Yeah, there are, yeah, blue water deck. Yeah. It's it's an interesting time out there. And that's why I think military people, not just Navy, but Army, Air Force, everybody else, has so much of a different perspective, because what we've seen, what we've experienced, and you're looking at disaster videos for whatever reason you want to look at them, and most of us tend to stay away from them because we've seen enough of them for real that we don't want to go back and revisit those.
I don't know. I wonder. I mean, I think on some level, psychologically, it's sort of this.
It's not happening to you.
No. Actually, the opposite. I feel like, I mean, although literally, yeah, obviously it's not happening to me, but I feel like on some level, it's sort of like people go through even worse things than I can even imagine. And we find a way. We survive.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Even, can I make another segue?
Sure.
While we're talking about disasters, and I'm really truly optimistic, I hope, ultimately, but it's been a really depressing time. The funny thing, honestly, I thought when I heard Donald Trump was running for president, I thought, oh, here we go with the clown shoes reality show guy. I didn't know a lot about him, but he was familiar to all of us for one thing or another since the 80s, at least. He was he's been very known and all that. And then he did that TV show, which I thought, wasn't he like, he was a boss,
The Apprentice.
He would be like, and he would say, you're fired. And that was the thing. And,
yeah.
And I just thought, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. Although, I mean, he said some things that sounded appealing and everything. But I thought this is going to be kind of a clown shoes presidency. And then he won me over. When he was in office, he did a lot of things he said he was going to do, which I didn't think he would be able to do. What he did with North Korea was nothing short of a miracle. And then Middle East, It seems to me there was a level of détente that has not been achieved before or since, certainly, and everything. And I thought, well, okay, I guess this is okay. And then I thought that Twitter was a disaster and was a terrible, terrible mess. And he kept his political opponents in a dither constantly and then I realized, okay, he's a person, he's in control of the situation. He's using Twitter like a laser pointer, and he's running his opponents all over like cats. And they are so busy foaming at the mouth over Kofifi that they don't see what he's doing. He was actually accomplishing a lot that was quite good. And he won my respect and everything. And now, and the funny thing is, to me, all the people who could not give any recognition for North Korea or the Middle East or things that were great in the economy. And, but no, they had to focus on, what terrible children he has and all that. And they looked like people you'd be proud to know, like a person. They're very accomplished, well-read people who are doing, having their own business ventures. I know, and and they're people who are going out and making their own way in the world, or participating at a very high level and functioning in a way that they can be respected, but on an international field. So it's really ironic for me to think back and think that I thought that was the clown shoes presidency, because what we've got now, I'm going to say it, it's a clown shoes presidency. And does Hunter Biden look like somebody you would want to be a dog catcher? He doesn't. And it's just, and to me, the same people who keep harping on about Trump, it's like, why? How can you not see how we're being run into the ground here?
They don't want to see it.
No, because all that matters is there's no more mean tweets.
Yeah. What would have happened if Hunter, instead of Hunter Biden, it had been Eric Trump?
Oh yeah, there would be no end of it. It would be the video. I mean, and what moron films themselves weighing crack?
Yeah.
The longer this goes on, the more I'm convinced that all the smears they tried to hit Trump with were basically taken from Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
And Hillary.
Raptor says, Rita, that comparison's insulting to clowns and clown shoes.
Yes.
You're right. You're right, Raptor. I apologize.
No, what I mean is the foreign compromised, servant of Russia and China. They said this about Trump, but it's actually true about Hunter.
Yeah. And the thing is that, and everyone said, one of the things that that my more liberal friends and relatives decried most loudly was that this was an embarrassment on an international level, that Trump was an embarrassing president. What's happening now, and the mental illness, or I shouldn't say mental illness, the clearly demented state of our
his mental deterioration
is awkward and horrifying, and it's horrifying to other people, because a lot of people rely on the United States being there and doing what we say we're going to do. And the question they're wondering, what we're wondering, which is who's running the show.
Yeah, and I don't even have a guess.
We should at least be able to elect who writes the teleprompter stuff.
Yeah.
Is
There
what
you
I'm
go.
saying.
Yeah.
Can we do that? Can we have some transparency there?
What
Because
do you have here?
That's
wafers.
they're vanilla. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're vanilla. They're wafer cookies.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
it.
Cookies.
What we were told by.
Cookie?
It's the
Sure,
dark
thank you.
side.
But we were told. Remember, Obama said this was going to be the most the most transparent administration ever, and then it wasn't, and he got away with all manner of crap.
Well,
We have, and then also all my adult life. Can I go on about this? I'm 56,
Yeah.
and all my adult life, I've heard all of my liberal and Democrat friends talk about what warmongers Republicans are and everything. And it looks kind of to me like Trump is the only president we've had in my adult life who has not done some kind of incursion or started, or at least been at the beginning of some kind of war.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And now everybody's slobbering to get involved in Ukraine.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Damn, AJ, that's, oh man, that sucked. He was on DDG 46 when it passed through Hugo in the Caribbean in '89. 2 days of cold rats, everyone not on watch, confined to the bunks.
yeah.
A lot of fun in the engine room.
Confined to the vomit splattered bunks.
Yeah. Well, at least in the engine room, you were down lower.
Oh.
Yeah, the kitchen roll wasn't quite so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that impressed me the most about Trump was moving the
Moving the embassy.
to Jerusalem.
Yep.
Because that had been promised for 20 some odd years. Nobody ever did it. And he just said, fine, it's been approved. We're going to do it now. And the left melted down.
Well, okay, so I sort of feel like the left have turned into a whole pack of sheep that are just kind of standing there trembling, waiting for the next cat to leap up out of the grass.
Yeah.
I mean, because it doesn't matter what you do, they all scream and melt down. I mean, they're like primed at every available moment to panic in whatever direction they're pointed. And I'm like, do people just like live this way all the time?
It's
Yes.
exhausting.
Well,
They
It's
must be
exhausting.
So exhausted. You know, and I kind of like want to run up to a couple of groups of them in Eugene. I always wanted to like run up to a group of progressives who were standing about and say, trees being cut down, and they go, ah! And run off. You know, and it's like, because they're just you're so reactive.
Yeah, that's
Like-
part of the problem.
Yeah, it's just like every opportunity to scream and flail.
But by the same token, a friend of mine, a retired naval officer that I served with, he is left of center.
Mhm.
Well, or was. But the progressives have drugged the left so far to the left
Yeah.
that he's now right of center by default because the average has moved all the way to the other side of him.
I know, it's just ridiculous. So
And, he literally said, I don't know what the hell to do. He said, I was a Blue Dog Democrat.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know which way to go now.
Go get tacos.
Oh.
Taco.
right? I mean, let's just have tacos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that Rubio posted his pictures of a taco.
Yeah.
You just have to wonder. It's like, and you don't think people really truly live in that much of a bubble, but go to Eugene if you want to see a real bubble. It's just boggling.
No.
It's just, oh,
Yeah, Rick, 4 days under the North Atlantic storm's always going to be fun. Not going to 100 deeper than 150 feet. Oh, you poor bastard. 30 to 45 degree roll, pitch, and yaw. Yep.
oh boy, that sounds fun.
And that's on a 300-foot submarine underwater.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
let's do it again.
There are some, speaking of YouTube, this is all things YouTube for me. Sorry. There's some videos of from one end of a ship or a submarine and the other end, and you see the
shimmy.
yeah, it's like a fish or something. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's unsettling.
Well, you can stand in the back of a Airbus and watch the airframe do that too,
Yeah.
which is worrisome.
I don't think I'll do that. Although I have to say, all my flights on Airbuses have been some of the smoothest. I've been shocked.
Bless you. You're lucky.
No, it's
Um,
just-
Yeah.
I know.
If one of the guys that I served with got out and went to United as a pilot,
Mhm.
made captain in Airbuses, and I was on the flight going into LA, and we hit moderate turbulence on final, and he was trying to land the airplane. The airplane was trying to go around on him,
Ooh.
and the next time I saw him, he was flying right seat on his 777s. He said, I'm done with it. Gave the captaincy back and not getting back on an Airbus, period.
Like, nope, we're done.
Yep.
I was a passenger on I was a passenger on a little Sabina plane from London to Brussels in the 90s. And it took off from London. There was a big storm. It was storming all the way from London to Brussels, flew in a storm, landed, and the plane was that yaw?
Now that's rolling.
Roll. It was terrifying because I was sitting right by the window and I'm watching the wing and I'm just sure it's going to touch the ground at any second. It's terrifying. It was the most violent, terrifying landing ever. I don't like flying on small planes after that.
Big ones will do the same thing.
I know. I don't need to think about it though, do I? I haven't seen it so personally, but
Oh,
Yeah.
Changi's 747 going into Changi a number of years ago. And when you were landing in Hong Kong, you basically aimed for the bullseye, literally,
Mhm.
on the side of the hill,
was that Kai-Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
and turned right. And you're actually below the level of the houses and the apartments.
Ugh.
But there's usually a crosswind.
Usually.
And this 747 is crabbed so hard, and he's right wing down, and literally the engine cowling touched the ground on the outboard engine as he slammed into the runway and then stomped a rudder to get it straightened back out.
terrifying.
We've
That was
made a few like that in P3s over the years.
there are great videos of people flying into that. That's a terrifying place to land. It
Yeah.
looks like it was anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. The bad one, Tom, is when the pilots are crying and shaking up front. That's usually when it becomes a real issue. Yeah, you're right, David. The big ones are just buses with wings. And that's why a lot of military pilots will take a job with an airline and then get out as soon as they can, because it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's block to block. Don't upset the passengers. Leave the autopilot on. No touchy, nothing. That's one reason I like United is they make the pilots fly on every flight.
They also make the passengers miserable as often as possible.
Every airline does that. I've got over 3 million miles on United. I had over 3 million on TWA.
I remember that airline.
Yeah. Had less on Pan Am.
I remember that one too.
Yeah.
I like Pan Am because they were great rich kids.
Well, yeah, Tom brings up a good point. Cargo pilots think they're all in Top Gun. Yeah, because the cargo is not going to complain to them unless they get it totally out of rig. And at that point, you're dead because the CG is going to shift. And
Definitely don't want your mass shifting around.
no.
Castaway was a great movie.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love the auto dentistry in the movie. The like taking the tooth out with a roller skate and a rock was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like in the theater. I saw it in the theater and in the theater. And anyway, everybody in the audience is going when that moment happens, and I'm cackling my brains out. And I love that.
Yeah.
But that was scary. That was a scary plane crash in the movie.
Oh, you talk about puking on the airplane. One of our favorite tricks, especially with a new 3P, was
Because people never do stuff like this, right? Yeah.
Never.
yeah. Well, we would run up down the tube because P3 had a laminar flow wing, so it was fairly sensitive to trim. And you run up down about half the crew be running back and forth, and 3P's trying to trim the airplane. And finally, either the pilot or 2P in the right seat get tired of it, go wham, wham, bounces off the overhead and the deck a couple of times.
That's the equivalent of, do I have to take my belt off?
Yeah, pretty much.
I will pull this thing over.
But the other thing we would do in turbulence to screw with a new pilot was somebody always had a can of Denny's beef stew in their bag.
Like Dinty Moore?
Yeah. So everybody carried Ziploc bags. Because if you were going down, the first thing you did was put your cigarettes and lighter in it so it wouldn't get wet. So
Priorities.
yeah. So you get in turbulence and
You'll need a good smoke when you
somebody
if you live
would,
through this, you will need a smoke.
so somebody would bring out the Denny Moore beef stew, pour it in one of the plastic bags, and then walk up behind the pilot and go, "Rah, rah, ah!" Here, want some? And the flight engineer routinely would go reach in and grab a chunk, throw it in his mouth, and watch the third pilot projectile puke on the windscreen.
Yes.
So mature. I have a barf bag collection.
We never had mature.
I know.
You collected barf bags. We just used them.
That's right. Mine are all as yet unsullied. I have an Aeroflot and Polish Air, and I have a really wonderful collector set from Virgin Air and Sabina, and what else?
Yeah.
How many defunct airlines do I have? I have a bunch.
Probably a bunch because SAS is now defunct too.
Yeah. Oh, Pan Am.
Yeah.
Pan Am.
Yeah, Tom, that 747 out of Kabul because the vehicles broke loose. Yeah, that was a problem.
What, did it crash?
Yeah, crash, kill a pilot.
Oh my gosh. When was that?
Was that a year ago? 2 years ago, Tom?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think I do have Braniff. I also have, was it Sun Air, Rio? There was another airline out of Dallas, I
Yeah.
think, that a friend of mine worked for. Unsullied, meaning it hasn't been in a river.
No, it hadn't been used. Oh, good one, Ren. Hadn't been used in the in the harbor in New York.
Oh, waka waka waka. Nausea pranks would make Nancy homicidal. Yeah.
Dark bag collection.
Yeah, well,
Richard Brown says Mature. That's the actor Victor Mature, who I read once had really bad breath. I was actually Clark Gable did too.
yeah. Well, some of that was on purpose, wasn't it?
I don't know, but I know Vivian Lee used that to like add a little something to her portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara.
Oh, okay.
That like kind of revulsion and something.
Well,
Ew, you're
didn't
so
she-
repulsive. I need to kiss you.
Didn't she also have something with the director versus the other director?
I'm not sure.
I seem to
You mean
remember.
like Aaron Spelling?
No,
That wasn't.
Gone with the Wind.
Gone
had
with
like
the Wind
4
was
different
not Aaron
directors.
Spelling.
no, but I'm trying to remember. That just
Selznick.
Selznick was the producer, and Victor Fleming was the final credited director, but it had like 4.
yeah, but didn't she? And I'm not sure this is correct, so correct me if I'm wrong. But didn't she hate the director that ended up directing her, and she was going to a previous director to get direction from him for what he thought the scene should be? And that-
Wow.
Certainly,
I didn't know that.
sounds. It's a classic Hollywood kind of a thing. I don't know if that's Gone with the Wind, but I'm not an expert on that movie,
Yeah.
so that's entirely possible.
Oh, geez, folks, we've wasted over an hour of your time today.
Oh, let's keep wasting it.
All right, well, we'll go a little bit longer. Not going to make a habit of this.
Uh-huh.
Vivian Lee, there was a really good story about her. She was She was
4:30 today.
4:30
No,
what?
we're not going to go that long either. Stop it.
He's telling a story.
That because yeah, she knows how I tell stories. It takes days because there are myriad rabbit chases. But anyway, Vivian Lee, and this was a book that I read about her. Somebody sings
Time flies when you're sick.
Pablo.
That's true.
So does the air sick. Anyway, the Vivian Lee was with a group of the Old Vic from London. They were a traveling troupe. They'd gone to Australia for a tour at some point, and they were they had one day off. They were like performing in every town where they were stopping, and they were exhausted. It was apparently grueling, and they were tired and cranky, I guess. And one of the things that had been arranged for them, because everyone in the troupe, including I guess Laurence Olivier, everyone was rather famous, and so they were people were clamoring after them. And when they got to they'd had before the tour, the tour manager had arranged for a private day at a place called the Oasis in Australia, which was some sort of wildlife preserve where they had kangaroos and other local fauna and everything. And they went there, and when they arrived at the park, it was a day that the park was normally closed, but they were supposed to have private access just for their troupe. And the people there told them, "We're sorry, you can't come in. We're closed." And they said, "No, we've arranged this. This has been arranged for months." And the manager of the group went in and talked and worked with the manager, or I guess of the park. And they finally said, "Oh yeah, sorry," and they come on in. And the managers went, everybody went in, and they went around and they saw the animals and did the things and everything. But Vivian Lee stayed one-on-one with a parrot all day, and she worked with this parrot. And
Oh, this is not going to end well.
I'm not going to say the word, but when they left, the parrot loved saying, "Fork the Oasis." Apparently it loved saying it gleefully. It was happy to say that. And So that was her little gift to them. And she put a lot of energy into revenge, apparently. So
Yeah, she was bipolar.
she had
Little bit.
she had issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blanche Dubois was not an act, I think.
Yeah.
Poor thing. What's amazing though is like what was amazing was that Olivier left her for Joan Plowright, which was not her given name. I mean, it's like Peter O'Toole. People, I mean, these names that actors choose that are like could not be filthier.
Yeah.
Peter O'Toole, Joan Plowright.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, when you look at some of their real names, it's not surprising they chose something else.
yeah, but the like the kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge is kind of like really.
Well,
So Dick Cavett and Groucho Marx were close friends for
Mhm.
the last 10, 15 years of Groucho's life. And
Mhm.
Groucho would write these long, long letters to him. And one of them was like a 5 or 6 page handwritten letter on the merits and demerits of Toscanini as a conductor. 5, 6 pages at the end, signed yours truly, Groucho Marx. P.S. Have you ever noticed that Peter O'Toole is double phallic? That was Groucho.
Classy. You know what John Waters said about, he was talking about Peter O'Toole's name. He said, what could be filthier? Muffy O'Clit? Anyway, I don't know what that means, but
I knew an NFO whose call sign was Crank because his last name was Ennis and his first name started with a P.
Uh-huh.
well, this is really not, it's not quite the same thing, but
Yeah.
my brother, and I can say this because he doesn't have it anymore, but at one point my brother named his Wi-Fi Hitler's prostate.
Yeah.
Which I thought was clever. Because who's going to get on that one? Let's see what's in here.
Oh, yeah. Brennan, that's a good one. Andrew Jackson's parrot. That's a true story. Had to be removed from the funeral because he wouldn't stop swearing.
Good bird. Good bird.
Mark Twain's daughter, I think it was, might have been his wife, but his daughter was so appalled at how he would swear all the time because
Yeah.
he was a riverboat man originally, followed him around and wrote down everything for
Yeah.
a week. And at the end of it, read it back to him, hoping to get him to stop. And he took out his cigar and said, "My dear, you have the notes, but you do not have the music."
Yeah. Yeah. The other one was interesting, Bob Hope.
Mhm.
He was foul mouthed when he was
Mhm.
around the troops. Amazingly so.
I believe it. There's a reason the troops loved him.
Oh, yeah. Michael Hunt, yeah. The cousin of the Hunt tomato family. Oh, boy. You talk about meeting people in weird circumstances. H.L. Hunt. My dad knew him when he was a buyer for Standard Oil before he became rich and famous. And I remember being a little kid, and we went up to Eldorado, Arkansas, because Daddy had to do something up there. I was about 5 years old, maybe 6. And pulled up in front of this little house in El Dorado. And here's this old man, to me, old man, out there in a wife beater t-shirt, mowing the yard with a push mower, not an electric one, a manual push mower.
Yep.
And that was Mr. Hunt. And I can't help but wonder how many RPM he's turning with what his kids have done since then. You know, especially when they tried to corner the silver market.
Oh, you mean, Old Man Hunt.
Yeah, H.L. Hunt.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. My ex-husband's grandfather was the treasurer for Hunt Oil.
Yeah.
And he had some spectacular stories that were just amazing.
Yeah.
Old Man Hunt was spectacularly cheap, and he would any memo that went out to the girls in the typing pool were just beleaguered by him, because any memo that went out, he insisted that the paper be completely covered, like no margins, just all from the edge of the paper all the way, just you will use every bit of this. And and he said that he would at one point he bought a fruit company or some kind of thing so he could he wanted to have a political show where he could just have his political ideas advanced and everything, and news or the TV station said, well, you can't run that. You've got to, there's got to be a sponsor and all that. So he bought a fruit canning company so he could have a sponsor, so he
Yeah.
could do his little thing. But anyway, it was apparently a real. I knew an artist in Dallas who has lots of, or he's dead. But anyway, he had a lot of interesting stories. He was working at a station, and Old Man Hunt would come there every morning, and they'd pump gas for him and clean his windshield, and they always did a really good job for him. And Old Man Hunt bought him and the other boy who pumped gas for him a lifetime membership to the YMCA, which I thought was really nice and weirdly contradictory for the other stuff. But there was one of the best stories though about Hunt Oil was the day Mr. Beeman on I shouldn't have said that, should I? But anyway, it was Christmas Eve. Everybody was taking, most people, well, the people at the company had the option to take the day off. And he thought, I better go in. So he went in, and there was a secretary that Old Man Hunt hated. And he had Mr. B, he had him fire her on Christmas Eve. And I said, was her name Cratchit?
Yeah.
Because anyway, what a bastard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine. But you know what? He was ornery, so they came by it honest, I reckon.
Oh yeah. But it was just, it was that differential of the behavior of the old man versus the kids.
Yeah, at least there was a method to the madness and
Yeah.
Some sense of morality, maybe.
Yeah.
Relative. It's relative.
Yeah,
but
it's always relative. Well, Charlie Waters, the old family friend, was a wildcatter. Made and lost his first fortune and did not buy his wife a house in River Oaks in Houston. So the second fortune, he bought her 2 houses.
I thought they were going to say her second husband bought her one.
Now he bought her a house in River Oaks in Houston and River Oaks in Dallas. And she still liked living over in Texarkana, which was odd. Oh, folks, we've been here long enough. Yeah, the Hunt Building in Dallas was just north of the book depository. That was a long time ago. There have been interesting things done to save money by a lot of people, and that's a whole set of stories in and of themselves. So anyway, we will let you all go. Have a safe weekend, folks. And especially if you're in Texas, try to stay reasonably cool.
Because we're all heading to the sweaty stuff.
So-
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, don't sweat the petty stuff. Don't pet the sweaty stuff. We'll see y'all later. Thank
Bye.
you, Rita, and thank you, Ian, for coming on.
Ciao.
Bye.